This show is presented by the 323 Network. You can watch all your favorite 323 friends and shows on the 323 Network YouTube channel, follow us on all social media platforms at 323Reid, and support us as we continue to grow at patreon.com/323Reid. That's 323REID. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 323. I am your host, Reid Murphy.
I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Look at the show. I'm the captain.
Welcome to the fucking show.
Fuck Scott.
That's right, folks. Welcome. Happy Saturday. Good morning, college football world. This is your host, Scott Ellia, with College Shame Day, presented by the 323 Network. We may have a late appearance, folks. We may have a late appearance from a co-host this evening, but apparently making money is more important than spending their Saturday here with you, folks. Oh, boy. Well, let's just get underway, folks, because that is right. Welcome to Week 12 in college football. Week 11 is now over, and boy, oh boy, was it another one for the ages. I mean, upsets riddled from top to bottom, some key victories going on as well. We'll get into that here in a second. And, of course, a really great slate of games coming up here in Week 13. To really start it off, a little bit of a recap from last week, especially Game of the Week and Wheel Degenerate. I'm sure we can probably all guess right now, folks, with how the Wheel Degenerate went. So let's just get that out the way. Ohio State, where the fuck were you, dude? Where were you? Of course, we tried to pick you to cover the spread of 28.5, and you can't do that against Northwestern. You're playing Northwestern. You can't put up more than 30 on them. But hey, okay, I guess it's just Ryan Day is going to do Ryan Day things. We missed on that, but we did hit, however, on the under 52.5 points in the Clemson-Pitt game. We also hit one of the key upsets from last week, the Kansas Jayhawks. That's right, folks, beating BYU on the road. And then we missed back-to-back Oregon minus 13.5 against Wisconsin and Washington State minus 10.5 against New Mexico. But hey, it's a new week. Anything could happen. We got a nice, fresh Wheel Degenerate here for you folks at the end of the show. Maybe the guest of honor will join us for that, but either way, we'll get you guys through it. As far as the game of the week from last week, that's right, Clemson and Pitt. Key ACC matchup that could have playoff and ACC championship implications tied to it. And Clemson, they did what everyone thought they were going to do, in defeating Pitt 24-20. So it was a lot tighter than a lot of people thought. And that was strongly to do with Cade Klubnik, quarterback there in Clemson, scoring a 50-yard touchdown with 1 minute remaining, thanks to a critical block by TJ Moore. A couple other key players outside of Cade Klubnik, who, also passed for 288 yards, 2 touchdowns, and ran for the game-winning score. Antonio Williams, career high, 13 receptions, 149 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then also TJ Parker sitting there tying Clemson's school record with 4 sacks. So congratulations to you, Mr. Parker. Now, as far as Pitt's concerned, Pitt, they look to be in shambles. I'm sure they're trying to fast forward to the rest of the season. Backup quarterback Nate Yarnell passing for 350 passing yards and a late go-ahead touchdown. So you definitely got what you wanted out of him being your backup. And then also Desmond Reed contributing 176 total yards for the Panthers. Now, as far as context goes for this game, thankfully Clemson's win does keep slim ACC title hopes alive. They're needing losses from both, either Miami or SMU to reach the championship. And both of those teams, SMU is definitely catching fire late in the season, and Miami seems to be sputtering out. So maybe they can try to back in to the finish line here as we're closing out the regular season. But some key takeaways also, Pitt's, this is their 3-game losing streak following a 7-0 start. So the wheels are just coming off there in Pittsburgh, and they just want to bury their heads in the sand. And I'm right there with you guys. So better luck next year. Some key takeaways from the game also for Clemson, a less dominant team this year than in years past, but they have been showing some resilience, folks, and especially with that pivotal final drive there, led by Cade Klubnik and team. For Pitt, they were penalized 13 times for 100 yards, including costly flags near Clemson's goal line. You cannot expect to win when you're muddying up the stat sheet like that and just giving the other team 100 yards on the ground. It makes sense why they've dropped the last 3 games over the last couple weeks. But there, of course, it wouldn't be Clemson. It wouldn't be Dabo Swinney without a little bit of a controversy going on with the game. Clemson's super freshman linebacker, Sammy Brown, he was ejected for targeting. And, of course, head coach Dabo Swinney expressing his frustration over unclear rules. Happened. If you go back and you watch the hit, it's not totally clear as far as the targeting call goes, but he did lead with the helmet and hit with the crown of the helmet like the rule states, which is what led him to be ejected. But thankfully he's only a freshman, folks, so he should be able to get things kind of corrected for the years in the future. Clemson's, and even though they did get that win, I don't feel they, you can look at the standings as it is now as far as the college football playoff and the AP poll, but they just didn't. They only went up to 17. They went up 2 spots. I mean, that's better than nothing, I guess. I really didn't after that game. I really felt that like they were unlikely to move up significantly after such a lackluster second half in that game. But coming up, folks, this week for them, Pitt, they are going to be visiting number 22 Louisville. So maybe they can get a win here late down the stretch. And then for Clemson, wanting to keep their ACC title hopes alive, they're hosting the Citadel this week. And that should be a fairly easy game for the Clemson Tigers. But folks, like I said, this is week 13. It's a new week. Anything could happen. And if we've learned anything so far in this college football season, that things can change quick. And the first game that I will be watching this week, that's right, folks, I want to give you 3 games real quick before we get into the college shame day game of the week. Starting at 12 o'clock, Indiana, number 5, Indiana at number 2, Ohio State. Got a Big Ten showdown going on. And a lot of these national pundits are kind of telling Indiana, maybe throwing the white flag, don't even show up because Ohio State's going to beat the bricks off of them. I don't see Curt Cignetti just letting his team roll over and die like that, and especially bow down to Ohio State. Yeah, they've been one of the top dogs in the Big Ten, you could arguably say in college football for the past couple years, but it's Ryan Day. Ryan Day is going to make some stupid boneheaded move. They got injuries riddled throughout that team, especially in the offensive line right now. So don't count Indiana out just yet. Just to highlight these 2 teams, Indiana, they're 10-0. And is having the best season since 1967, led by transfer quarterback Curtis Rourke. And Ohio State is 9-1. So it's kind of interesting that your name bias can get you 3 spots higher in the college football playoff pool, with Ohio State at 2 and Indiana at 5. They've been a dominant force this year. There's no doubt there. But with their only loss being a close game against now number 1 Oregon, I guess it's one of those things you say is a quality loss, which I'll never understand that term as long as I live, but hey, I digress. But there are some major stakes at play, and I'm very upset that the game's at 12. I mean, this is a game that you would want to have, featuring late night, get everyone in there, because the winner remains in contention for the Big Ten title game in Indianapolis and looking to be playing Oregon for that. But if you look at the history for this matchup, I mean, Ohio State holds a 28-game win streak over Indiana dating back to 1991, and Indiana hasn't shared a Big Ten title since 1967 and seeks its first Big Ten championship game appearance this year under the regime of Curt Cignetti. There are some key players I do want you folks to keep an eye out for, especially for Ohio State. Ohio State's receivers, Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka, they both are having stellar years. You can't ask for more out of a wide receiver group than, Smith posting 165 yards, 9 touchdowns, and Emeka, he's at 612 yards just behind him and 8 touchdowns this year. So when you're getting that kind of productions on both sides of the field, it's kind of scary. It's a matchup nightmare. You don't know who you want to try to highlight more for your defensive backs. You're just hoping to contain them, not so much stop them, but try to slow them down a little bit. But even if you try to slow them down, I mean, they got a pair of running backs in the backfield with Quinshawn Judkins and Trevion Henderson, both combining for 1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns, which is wild to think about the production that Ashton Genty's doing, because that's pretty much where he's at, just by himself, one person. But these two gentlemen in the Ohio State backfield, they're a matchup nightmare as well. Oh, and of course you have transfer quarterback Will Howard. He's still under center, and he's been connecting for multiple key touchdowns in recent games. He seems to finally have things figured out there for Ohio State. But for Indiana, Coach Curt Cignetti, he was rewarded for all his success this year so far with an 8-year, $8 million contract extension. I know me and Reid and some others offline kind of talked about Coach here, and with the amount of success and just the limelight that he's been able to bring to a program like Indiana, is this just going to be a future springboard to go to a highly touted Power 4 team like an LSU, who might be without Brian Kelly in the future? I mean, you still got all the Billy Napier grumblings down there in Gainesville for Florida. Maybe he's going to try to jump ship and go to one of those SEC teams. But with this, I mean, I would imagine the buyout's going to be fairly minimal, with the contract only being $8 million. But still, he's made it well known that him and his wife love it there. They had all they have all the love and respect for that community. So I really hope that he ends up actually staying there and bringing a program like Indiana to the national spotlight like he has this season. But thankfully, with the bye week, it gave this team time to recover after that crucial 20-15 victory over Michigan 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks of gameplay and tape to really figure out this Ohio State Buckeyes team. So I'm very excited to see that. But there's, just like Indiana's challenge as far as the talent level from top to bottom, when you're looking at the rosters, I mean, you look at this Ohio State team, like I mentioned, their offensive line is in shambles. Starting center Seth McLaughlin, he's torn his Achilles. Left tackle Josh Simmons and his replacement, they're both also out. They're including some key adjustments with Donovan Jackson moving to tackle, Carson Heinzman to center, and Austin Serverland to guard. So hopefully Ryan Day can get that offensive line group, rocking and ready to go for this 12 o'clock game. But that might just be enough blood in the water for the Hoosiers to really attack and make Will Howard not comfortable to get the ball out to his stud wide receivers. Now, of course, both these coaches, they're very similar in their style that they go attack each and every week. Of course, Ryan Day, he's stressing the importance of a win to secure the Big Ten championship appearance, and Curt Cignetti, he's just remaining optimistic about his team's growth and energized by additional preparation time, which is always also really great to have. But Ohio State, they have everything to lose, and Indiana, they don't really have much to lose because they're going into this as the clear underdog. But I would not be shocked if they were actually able to pull out this upset victory this week. Moving on to 3:30, we got Reid's BYU, number 14 BYU at number 21 Arizona State. Congrats, Arizona State, for breaking the top 25. This is a team that is being very well coached by Kenny Dillingham for Arizona State. He's worked with some really great programs. He was offensive coordinator for Florida State for a while under Mike Norvell. He's been under Dan Lanning up there in Oregon for a little bit. This is his first head coaching job, and you got a program like Arizona State, who, with all things involved with a lot of the bans and a lot of the things affecting the program right now as far as bowl eligibility and things of that nature, he's still being able to put out a quality product on the field and getting these kids ready for Saturday. Now, especially this Saturday, Arizona State, they're 8-2, the number 21 in the college football playoff. They're hosting its first ranked November game since 2014. 10 years, too long. They've also achieved a 5-win improvement over last season, the biggest since 1996. And of course, they're riding into this game on a 3-game win streak. On the other side of the ball, BYU, they're also 9-1, number 14 in the college football playoff rankings, seeking to bounce back after their first loss of the season last week, 17-3 versus Kansas. But they really control their own destiny in the Big 12, especially with the title race. Despite this setback, win and you're in. It looks like they could potentially be facing off against Colorado, and that would be a very exciting game to watch, BYU versus Colorado for the Big 12 championship game. A couple key players to kind of keep an eye on in this game for Arizona State, quarterback Sam Levitt, redshirt freshman, coming off of a stellar game against Kansas State with 3 first-half touchdowns. And then running back Cam Scadaboo, only FBS player with over 1,000 yards rushing and 300 yards receiving. So it doesn't matter if he's running the ball or catching the ball off of the backfield. He's one you have to keep an eye on at all times. And of course, he's a key offensive weapon with 4 100 games and 2 100-yard receiving games this season. Now for BYU, it's going to come down to that defense to control, that amount of talent coming out of the backfield. Their defense is exceptional against the pass, allowing just 176 passing yards per game this season, and also leading the FBS interceptions with 17 on the year, with contributions from 11 different players. So it's not just one person leading the charge. BYU's defense is scary to line up against. So I think they're going to right the ship coming off of that really crucial loss last week. And there's not much more to say about the game about what's at stake. Both these teams are making strong pushes for the Big 12 championship game, more so BYU than Arizona State. But a win solidifies a strong finish to the season, and it still bolsters, their standing within the Big 12 for Arizona State. One quick final note for the game. Both teams, they've of course surpassed preseason expectations, making this a high stakes clash between, not only for college football playoff and Big 12 implications, but the Sun Devils seek to keep their win streak alive, while BYU aims to prove their loss to Kansas was just a blip. Whew, man. And if you think, just these 2 games alone, you'd think, oh, it's over. There can't be any more games on for the rest of the game, for the rest of the day that you want to keep an eye on. But no, folks, 7:30. That's right, 7:30. Number 7 Alabama traveling to Norman to play Oklahoma, who are 5-5, 1-5 in the SEC. They have just been struggling in their inaugural SEC season with 4 consecutive conference losses. They fired their offensive coordinator, but they still remain highly competitive and anchored by a strong defense. They're still in the bowl eligibility kind of mix, with the season-defining upset on Senior Day. But hopefully they can squeak one out against Alabama, because nobody wants to see Alabama, win another game and stay alive in the college football playoff. Because for every win that Alabama gets, it's just going to further push the narrative of getting as many SEC teams into the playoffs as you can. They're 8-2 on the year. They're 4-2 in the SEC, and they rank number 7 right now. But they're still aiming to stay in the hunt with no room for error. They're led by quarterback Jalen Milroe, who is a dynamic, true dual threat quarterback, and he has been having an historic season so far. Some key matchups and and some players to really keep an eyeball on for this game for Oklahoma's defense, like we stated, riddled with studs, starting with linebacker Danny Stutzman, second in the SEC with 96 tackles, and is just a true disruptive force, just playing sideline to sideline 100% of the time. In the backfield, D-back Billy Bowman Jr. scored 4 defensive touchdowns in 2023, tied for most nationally. So hopefully to see him really put the pressure on Jalen Milroe to make some really good reads. And then also one person that is hoping to really disrupt Jalen Milroe and get him uncomfortable and not producing as well he's been doing is going to be defensive end Mason Thomas rather. 7 sacks in the year and excelling in clutch, high stakes moments. And I know we talked about Jalen Milroe, but for Oklahoma, their quarterback Jackson Arnold, he's improved. He's very much improved over the last 4 games. So far on the season, 70 for 112, 700 touchdowns and 705 yards and 5 touchdowns. But you can tell he is just not comfortable back there. He's still very green running a college offense like this. So the mistakes have been very, very costly. So hopefully they can right the ship there. And then for running back Javonte Barnes, career high 203 yards last week versus Maine. He is questionable this week due to injury, so hopefully they can get him ready to rock and roll for this very crucial game to keep Alabama down and out. For Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe, 15 passing touchdowns and 17 rushing touchdowns this year, joining an elite SEC group with past Heisman winners like Tim Tebow, Cam Newton, Johnny Manziel. But when you got Cam Ward playing out of his mind in South Beach in Miami, any other season, Jalen Milroe would look like that true Heisman favorite. But there's just been so much great playmakers this year that this is just going to be a footnote for production this year. And one person who I feel is going to be in the Heisman races for years to come, it's still going to be that wide receiver, Ryan Williams, freshman standout, 767 yards receiving this year so far with 8 touchdowns. For Alabama, Kalen DeBoer, emphasizing staying focused on the current game rather than the playoff implications. Don't look far down the road, folks. Attack what's in front of you right now and then keep moving forward, because he is very much putting Oklahoma's defense in high praise, being physical and disciplined unit. So he's going to make sure to have that offense laser focused and not drop one of these games in a trap game. For Brent Venables, I mean, we talked about Clemson for a little bit with Dabo Swinney and what's going on right now in Clemson, but Brent Venables was one of those coordinators that came out of Clemson's years ago and took this head coaching job here in Oklahoma, and everyone had such high hopes for him. Last year they did great. This year they're sputtering out, but you can say that for a lot of teams this year. But Brent Venables, you've remained focused, motivating his team to end the season on a high note, emphasizing resilience and belief, and that he's also been acknowledging Kalen DeBoer's adaptability and optimizing Alabama's talent in his first year, which is one that I don't think anybody really expected Kalen DeBoer to be leading Alabama to a potential college football playoff berth. But that's enough Alabama talk. We're done talking about Alabama. Let's move it forward, folks. Let's go on to the game of the week. That's right, Scott Ellia's game that he'll be watching this week for College Shame Day, and that is number 19 Army. That's right, Army is back, folks. We got to give them some more love. Number 19 Army playing in the Bronx in Yankee Stadium. And who are they playing this week, folks? Notre Dame. Number 6, Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame already squandered one of our decorated soldiers institutions this year with the win against Navy. Are they going to be able to do a repeat against Army and kind of squander, the hopes and dreams of Army getting into the college football playoff? 7 o'clock at Yankee Stadium. Notre Dame, they are favored by 14.5 points, and of course Notre Dame leads the series with Army 39-8-4. But what's at stake for both of these teams, you ask? Notre Dame, they're riding an 8-game winning streak. The Irish, they still aim to solidify the playoff resume and stay in contention for a berth in the college football playoff. And they're boasting a dominant defense, allowing just 11.5 points per game, 3rd best in the nation. But you can also look at their resume. I mean, who have they really truly played this year? Nobody. I mean, they got Texas A&M at the beginning of the year, and we've seen what they've been doing. I mean, they had Florida State, who has been an embarrassment in college football this year, and it's forced on me. But other than that, they haven't really played anybody. So, of course, they're only going to be allowing 11.5 points per game. But for Army, with the nation's longest active winning streak of 13 games, the Black Knights are one of the only 3 unbeaten FBS teams left, having already clinched a spot in the AAC championship game. This matchup offers a chance to bolster their playoff rankings and strengthen their case to host number 20 Tulane on December 6th. Now, folks, if they walk away with this game with a win, I would hope that Army would just take a rocket ship straight up the boards and really make a push for the college football playoff. And likewise for Notre Dame, just crumbling to the ether and just getting out of the talk. You've already lost one game against Northern Illinois, and you're going to lose again against Army. You have USC next week. You just go away. We're tired of talking about, just like we're tired of talking about Alabama, we're tired of talking about Notre Dame and just harping on their name to get up to where they're at right now. But when it comes down to key matchups, I mean, Army's turnover discipline versus Notre Dame's opportunistic defense. Army leads the nation in turnovers, lost 2 all season. Notre Dame tops the nation in turnovers gained with 25, including 5 fumbles and 1 pick against Navy's similar run-heavy offense last month. So hopefully Army's going to be able to, get ahead of it, go back and watch some of that game tape from the Navy Notre Dame game and try to really figure out exactly how to get one over on Notre Dame. But both teams, they excel at limiting and forcing turnovers, so ball security will play a very pivotal role this week. And of course, players to watch for the game: Bryson Daly for quarterback for Army is a monster, a force on the ground with 21 rushing touchdowns, second in all the FBS, and just over 1,000 yards rushing, which you wouldn't expect out of a quarterback. But when you watch their offense, it makes sense why they trust him running the rock down the field. And if you're not going to let him run, running back Kanye Udo on pace to eclipse 1,000 rushing yards this year, currently at 856, potentially joining Daly in achieving a rare feat for Army this week. For Notre Dame, want to stick with the run game with Jeremiah Love, has scored a rushing touchdown in 10 straight games. 10 straight games, tied for the second longest streak in Notre Dame history. So it's a safe bet that he's probably going to find the end zone again this week, folks. So watch him. He is coming off of a career best 137 yards and 2 touchdown performance against the University of Virginia. So I look to see him duplicating that kind of performance again this week. But let's get some defensive players some love. Xavier Watts, safety for Notre Dame, a defensive playmaker with 4 interceptions, 7th in the FBS, and a fumble recovery last week. So he's one that you're going to really want to make sure he has his eyes on Bryson Daly at all times to really make sure that he's not breaking out for some of those long runs. A couple cool facts about the game. This matchup marks a 24th meeting at Yankee Stadium. Notre Dame leads. They are 15-5-3. Army averages an FBS best 335 yards rushing per game and hasn't trailed in a game this season until week 9 versus North Texas. And folks, we have somebody that just decided to show up, and I actually want to get his thoughts really quick because he has been a major proponent for the Armed Services Academies playing in football, and that is Reid Murphy.
USA.
I'm glad he just responded to me because now I'm not running blind, not knowing if I'm being recorded or not.
What a nightmare scenario it is.
I've been freaking out. Ever since that one time. Now I'm just like on pin needles, just trying to figure out if I'm doing everything right. But yeah, Reid, game of the week this week: Army, Notre Dame, Yankee Stadium.
We've been looking forward to this game, haven't we? We've been talking about the potential for Army and needing a win against Notre Dame to really kind of solidify something. I've been running blind for a couple of weeks. I know you've updated the audience. I haven't gotten to see real quickly what's the scenario that we could get here with an Army win over Notre Dame.
I just told the folks if Army ends up beating Notre Dame, then I would be safe to assume that both of these teams are taking a rocket ship in different directions. Army should be shooting up the polls with their win, and then I would hope that Notre Dame isn't going to rely on their name and stay relevant in the college football playoff scenario. But I would just hope they just plummet to ground zero. I mean, they're in New York. There's no better place to do it.
And Army avenges them. It's right. It's how the cycle goes. I'm really looking forward to this game. This is an excellent game of the week. There can't be an argument against it.
No, I mean, there's some really great games. Of course, we're about to get into the Wheel of Degenerate here in a second, Reid, but a couple games that, talking with the folks already, ones that I'll get your thoughts on really quick, just what you expect and who do you think could end up winning. At 12 o'clock, you got the Indiana-Ohio State game, which a lot of people have come out stating, why the hell are you playing this at noon? Why is this a noon kickoff game? Why is this not at 7 o'clock? But
this was everybody not seeing what we were seeing with Indiana and Kurt Cignetti. This is college football not being prepared for the powerhouse that was coming. So, but I kind of like a noon huge stakes game. I've been getting kind of used to it in college football. So
it just tone for the whole day. I mean, just think about it. Indiana, they go into Ohio State, they beat the bricks off of them, and then you're just riding that high for the whole day. I mean, 3:30, you got BYU. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. For condolences to you, BYU. I called that, losing that game last week against Kansas. They are going to be going to Arizona State this week, so I'm really excited to see if they can right the ship and stay relevant there in Provo. And then 7:30. I mean, this is why, like you said, they hindsight's always 20/20. I'm sure the football scheduling committee would have rather had this game, be at noon this week. It's 7 Alabama at Oklahoma. I'm sure they had a lot more higher hopes for this game at the beginning of the year.
Oh, 100%. And no, it didn't pan out whatsoever.
By the way, Reid, lame of the week. They're back. Florida State, Charleston Southern. Charleston Southern's 1-10. Florida State's 1-9. These teams combined for 2 wins total season. We got to win, right?
You have to. You need to, especially after cleaning almost all of house, except Dad. Dad stayed.
Nope.
But you cleaned house everywhere else. I mean, this has to be. I don't want to say a statement win, but it's a lowercase statement.
Oh God! Well, I'll tell you one thing that's a bold, underlined, italicized, super like Comic Sans font statement. That's the Wheel of Degenerate, folks. That's right. There's only one place that you can see this great production value, and that is at the YouTube channel 323 Reid, where you can follow all the social media. Like we say every week, Reid, we don't give them the picks live right here unless it's kind of blatantly obvious.
Right.
But of course, we've been running on a little bit of a streak where the game of the week ends up being part of the Wheel of Degenerate betting slip, and I'm wondering if the fates are going to tempt us again this week.
I mean, you did pretty well just off of that picking Kansas over BYU. That was a good hit by you.
Right,
It's hotter and hotter.
Dude, it's gonna hit. I mean, I got that Monday night NFL game parlay. I got that under my belt. 15 to win $98. So that was nice to have in there. And we're gonna be starting this off with number 15 Texas A&M at Auburn. Some of these other games, Reid, like we talked about Indiana, Ohio State. We got Wake Forest going to Miami, Ole Miss, Florida, SMU, and Virginia. I've been seeing billboards for that game around Richmond all week, and I'll never understand why there's so much hype. Especially when the second game up on the degenerate betting slip is number 22 Iowa State at Utah, which is just a snooze fest. I have no interest there.
Do you think Whittingham retires after this season, or he can't hang it up on this kind of season for Utah?
I don't think he can hang it up. I think he needs to come back and try to make one last push. I mean, they've had so much success there in Utah in recent seasons. This one, it definitely is leaving a bitter taste in his mouth. I'm talking about Illinois and Rutgers, another stinky game. Where are all the good games? Ah, shit.
Here we go.
No.
Here we go. Here we go.
Here we go. Fourth game up is the ESPN College Game Day game of the week, Indiana at Ohio State. So, Reid, our Wheel of Degenerate betting slip might be dead at 2 o'clock.
I think we can hit that one. Oh, I heard that rule last.
It almost did it.
That rule last.
For the folks who are listening, the wheel landed right in between the game that it picked, Penn State at Minnesota, and the Army Notre Dame game. So I was going to be very excited to get the Notre Dame game in there as well to try to win some money off of them. But that's it, folks. 5 matchups for the Wheel of Degenerate betting slip that you can find first thing Saturday morning. Number 5, Indiana, Ohio State. Number 25, Illinois at Rutgers. Number 4, Penn State at Minnesota. Number 15, Texas A&M at Auburn. And number 22, Iowa State at Utah. And Reid, it feels like you've just been on this show for so long today. You've been talking my ear off and gabbing. I want to get you out of here. I want to get these folks out of here to go enjoy their Saturday. What do you have going on the main channel for 323? Anything fun?
We've got the usual Ricks versus Gricks will be hitting, but hey, Thanksgiving's coming too, so you're going to be getting like a double. You're going to be getting a double dose of Ricks versus Gricks, just great football action, because you're going to get our regular Ricks versus Gricks on Friday. It's already out by the time you're seeing this, but also Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. Whenever we want.
It's your network. You do what you want.
Yeah, we'll get the Thanksgiving special out there, so you'll be getting some fun stuff. We're going to be ranking and doing a draft when it comes to appetizers, so you got to have your opinions on that and come join us on the 323 Network.
I got some bold hot takes for apps, for Thanksgiving apps, man. I got some bold takes.
There we go. Catch them there.
Oh, folks, but that is it. Let's get you out of here. Thank you again for joining us. Another glorious Saturday of College Shame Day. Make sure to stay safe, but more importantly, stay shameful.
Always be ashamed of yourself.
I live in the shame.